Bono left a serious big hole. Remember, 1.3 billion that had to be adopted by cabinet, right? They've also taken $400 million worth of non-performing loans. If you go to those non-performing loans and look at the list, you look at very interesting individuals who owe billions but are building, who owe millions but are building huge houses, right? So it's the politicians who used to go to these banks and borrow money, and now they can't repay. So that's what, 2 billion, right? We then put on the budget deficit, which is 2.5 billion, so we've got 4.5 billion. We then put on treasury bills, which they've printed, right? Which is another 2 billion. Now through, maybe 3 billion. So you've got 6-7 billion home. That has to be financed. That has to be paid, right? Now you're not going to pay that through bond notes. You'll have to print $7 billion worth of bond notes in order to repay that. But there's a suspicion that, okay, they want to test the market. Because remember, particularly Mugabe said, if they work, we will increase them. In his statement, when he was saying, you must use bond notes. If they work, these people don't worry about it. They work, they always resist them initially. If they work, but as time goes on, we will increase them. That is the major problem, the major danger that we face. But if that happens, this economy will collapse. And we'll be back to 2008. Well, there's no difference. For me, there's absolutely, it's misnomer in that a bearer check was not backed by any currency, right? Whereas this bond note is backed, it's like an IOU that is backed by some currency, but it's a funny system anyway, because how can a currency be backed by another currency and stuff like that? Do you know what I mean? So to me, it's just a piece of paper that is a nominal value of $1. And they used to do that, like if you work at a farm, instead of getting your wages, you get a piece of paper and you can go to the shop and you can get your groceries. So instead of using money, you're using this piece of paper. And that's basically what a bond note is. It's an attempt to replace the dollar.
Is 200 million enough?
Well, the idea is that if 200 million is 5%, then what's 100%? 6 billion. That's big bucks. If you look at the leverage, do you see what I'm saying? So if 200 million is worth 6 billion in exports, that's huge. But it's not going to work. I mean, my argument is that exports are not going to increase, exporters are not going to jump up and down because you've given them 5% of bond notes. The reason why they're not exporting, one, you see Zimbabweans are not taking advantage of the SADC and the COMESA market. There's about 600 million individuals. We just don't do our research, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that there's just no capacity. I mean, you get a huge export order, right? And you have to bring in new machinery in order to meet that export order. What are you going to do? Are you going to be able to buy that machinery because you're getting a 5% incentive? Do you see what? So for me, the 5% incentive is a mirage. It's just playing with words. Do you know what I'm saying? They have to be seen. I was saying it's like you see a patient that comes into your surgery and they're bleeding. The first thing you have to do is to try to stop that bleeding before you even actually diagnose what's wrong with them. This economy is bleeding US dollars. And they're saying, oh, okay, how do we stop the bleeding immediately? Let's try this, let's try that, let's try this. And this is just an attempt to actually stop the bleeding. But sadly, it's really not going to work.
When they introduced the multi-currency regime
Yes.
in 2009, did the government not foresee some of these problems, do you think?
There was no planning. That was a crisis management. Actually, as far as I understand, it's not the government that brought the US dollar, it's Zimbabweans who rejected the Zim dollar and chose to use the rand, and therefore the government had to come along. They were boasting, no, we did that. But that's a fundamental mistake, because you see, there's a big argument about development and protection of companies. You will see that, for example, countries that have developed economically very well had some sense of protection before they could actually open themselves up to these transactions in the free market, right? And we just opened ourselves up without the capacity to produce. And that was the most ridiculous thing that we could have done. Because as you say, everybody comes through to the country, makes a fortune, takes money out, and the country is dry and you can't produce, and here you are. Do you see what I'm saying? So remember, this was a crisis. This was a reaction to a crisis. There's no planning, right? And this government does not plan because it's managed by Mugabe, who basically wakes up and decides what's going to happen. There's no big agenda. There's no big good plan that we are working on. It's just, you know, as we say, managing the country from one calamity to the other. But now, you know, I think they've all learned, but it's too late. You know, but we are very aware that you don't suddenly open up a country that is weak to international competition. I mean, look at how the Chinese products have devastated our economy. You don't do that, you know, if you want to develop. First, you develop the capacity, you know, and to develop the systems and the institutions that actually make your country solid. You develop a huge reserve of either gold or money before you open up yourselves to all this competition. And it's very important that we actually reconsider that when this government, when we take over. Really, actually, yes, he's my friend. It's a tough job, but he must have known before he got into that. I mean, he didn't go into it blindly. You know what I'm saying? That is also the cost of ambition. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a terrible job when a politician is controlling you, and you know what is the right thing to do, and yet you have to satisfy political kind of needs. It's sad, but that's the reality of that job. So one fundamental thing we will insist on is that the Reserve Bank is a totally independent entity run by professionals with a totally different board, and the president does not have a direct line to the governor. Do you see what I'm saying? That's one thing we have to stop. It's not good enough because it compromises the whole system.
And what kind of system do we have in place right now?
Well, we don't have a board, right? We don't have a board. Effectively, the governor and Chinamas are running the Reserve Bank, and obviously the OPC, which is the president's office. Everybody's been saying they're making the calls. There is no independent board. You know, I mean, one of the requirements for you, for example, to issue treasury bills is that it is approved by a monetary committee. We don't have that. So the governance is wrong currently, and there's no incentive, there's no hurry to bring independent thinkers into the Reserve Bank.
For these and other stories, visit our website www.263chat.com. Follow us on Twitter @263chat and like our Facebook page 263chat.